Let's discuss Darwinism. Number 3. Richard Dawkins is wrong. I want to debate that guy. He's so obnoxious and make people intimidate people, but he has no basis. No basis. He's laughable. I'm gonna laugh. I'm gonna make everybody laugh when they hear us debate at him. So we discussed a little bit about Darwin and the tree of life, and there are discoveries, but there are theories and all of this. In order for you to say that things have happened by chance that made the cell develop, the molecules attached together made the cell, you have to ignore the fact that there is something called DNA. If the whole point is to have cells attached together, then there should not be DNA. Why would there be DNA? DNA looks like it's an information delivered to the cell or placed in a cell to achieve certain function. You're not gonna tell me that the cell, after it was formed by chance, taking billions of years from simple molecules, now within the cells themselves, there was infinite tries to make a whole DNA helix or DNA material. You're not going to tell me that. Simply because, number one, every cell is not, doesn't live for a long time in order to achieve this mutation, and is not going to be able to transfer this information to another cell unless we're talking about something about reproduction or mitosis or something like that, without having a DNA. So you have a limited number of tries to try actually to make the mutation to build DNA. If this is your theory, is that you have to build a cell and then DNA, of course that's not a theory. That's not valid. The valid theory is that the DNA was formed first, or that the DNA, which is another invalid theory, the DNA and the cell, or the cell containing DNA as the structure we know right now, has been developed completely by chance from the beginning, the way the structure is right now, and that obviously also is not valid. So basically, if you decided to say, the theory, or your theory, is that DNA has developed first, and then the cell was developed shortly after, based on the DNA structure, because the DNA is what builds the cell. That's what messenger RNA comes from DNA and goes into the ribosome, and the ribosome makes the protein and then the fat accumulates and all this, and every protein makes a function of the cell. So the DNA has to have developed first. So you're telling me now, this theory is easily debunked, that the DNA has been developed by itself. DNA has been developed by itself in the bear, within the elements, and made, I guess, the first thing it made was a cell membrane to protect itself. Obviously, it's impossible, because DNA will code for everything in the DNA. So why is the cell membrane made first? Nobody knows. It can't. Number two, what makes the cell membrane? It's the protein that is made by the ribosomes. DNA by itself doesn't make anything. The DNA are the orders to the cell to make things. So, of course, there has to be a ribosome. So maybe DNA made the ribosome first, and then the ribosome made some proteins and made a the cell membrane and other components of the cell. Of course, doesn't make any sense, because that means that the DNA and the ribosome, DNA has to code for a ribosome first, and then the ribosome is made, and both of them are staying completely close to each other, because the ribosome itself is made of protein. So it has to be made. What will make the ribosome? We don't know. Doesn't exist. And even if we pass that step, just to give you guys some, just to keep you in a debate for a little bit, DNA and ribosome will have to stay very close to each other, that the messenger or the RNA that comes from the DNA goes through the ribosome and get read and then made into protein. That makes sense. And then of course, where the messenger RNA is gonna flow? It has to flow in a cytoplasm. I mean, it's gonna flow like where on the mud. I have no idea. So it has to flow in some sort of a cytoplasm. And who made the cytoplasm? How was it made? Talk about the first cell. So obviously, these theories about the start of cells and the start of life, these theories are wrong.